Brian, and thank you for joining the Meet Italy community today and share your views with us. And hello, everyone, and welcome to It's a Brave Zoom World, a series of interviews with industry and opinion leaders in the time of lockdown. Brian, you are the founder of Expert Dojo, an accelerator based in Santa Monica. You live and breathe the startup universe. Give us your views on how startups are adapting to the current difficult environment.
So I think much of it comes, let me give a perspective from my startups first,
Yes.
which are very early stage startups, because obviously we invest right at the beginning. We're almost first checks in with $100,000. And most of our companies have got 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 employees, absolutely tops. So for them, I don't want to say it's easy, but it's definitely better. Because we know that the startups that are really struggling, especially the technology startups, are the one with 100, 200, 300, 400 people, because they have all of these people. Everything has changed. Their venture capitalists are obviously telling them to reduce down their costs, which includes staff. They're having to reduce their marketing. They're having to reduce their expenses. So it's almost an equaling in this terrible time, but an equaling between the terrible situation that normally an early stage startup has, whereby they cannot compete with this monster giant, and now a time when actually they can compete very, very aggressively. So it's actually not all bad news, especially for the early stage companies.
Well, that's very good to hear. Are you seeing any specific trends that are developing out of this situation where you might, decide to switch your attention a little bit?
Yeah, lots of trends. I think number one, everybody in America has become a mask salesperson, right? Every person I know is saying, well, we've decided we're going to pivot our business, and we used to do travel, but masks are so similar to travel, so now we're going to sell 250,000 masks. But like, leaving aside the silly stuff, yeah, I mean, look, as a venture capitalist, our only business is really to read trends. Like, that's all we do. We like to think we're very smart with numbers and think that we can analyze companies and people, but really it's trends. And if we see a trend properly and we read it correctly, so I always find that the virtual reality is a very good example of this types of trend. Like, if you could read virtual reality one of two ways. The world is all going to virtual reality. We should invest all of our money. And you could look at the underlying trends, which is that it hasn't picked up as much as gaming has during this period. And if that hasn't happened as much, maybe we should hold back. And then also the big players like the Oculus haven't jumped forward as quickly as we would have wanted them to. And also the technology hasn't been deemed to be comfortable. So that's trend reading. So what are the trends that we do like and we are seeing? Well, so we love anything to do with online training, on which we've spoken about before, because we can see that what happened was, this is not the first nor the last time this is going to happen. And we've actually got very used to Zoom rooms and training and online meetings and those things very, very quickly. And that jump to suddenly thinking, well, hang on a second here. If MIT are one of the greatest universities on the planet for this specific demographic, what if MIT could become global? Like, what if MIT could transmit those incredible professors they have around the world? So we're really looking at technology in that area. I actually have one company in due diligence right now, which is all about facial and behavioral reading through the computer of people who are engaged in online meetings, which is something we could never do in the real world before. So we love that. We love, obviously, healthcare is still a rising star in the venture space. We really enjoyed that as well. Gaming, we just invested in a great gaming company coming out of Israel, who we think is going to do phenomenal things with the games that they brought through. So it's really about looking and saying, is this period we're in a temporary period, or is it a new normal? And I think all of us know it's a new normal, which means that actually, as a venture capitalist, this may be the best time in the last 5 to 10 years. We get companies that get at better prices, the water is less muddy, and we can see the companies and the trends much clearer than we could have before.
Right, like we were saying earlier before we officially started, this location like this usually create winners and losers. And if you have capital at hand, this is probably one of the better times to be engaging in the process. Absolutely.
Absolutely. This is a great time. And I'm saying this to startups and to investors. Anybody who's holding back, especially venture capitalists who's holding back on investment right now, I believe it's a mistake, especially those earlier stage folks like us, where normally we're at a disadvantage to the larger players just because of the stage that we're at in the cycle. This is our time. This is when we can find incredible companies with proven traction who are struggling to find investment elsewhere, and we can swoop in and work with them and help them develop and do it at a period where they have the ability to grow the next. So we have to do that. And my message to startups is there are folks like me all over the place. Like, we are doubling down. We are doing twice as many investments today that we did 3 months ago.
Right.
And there are lots of other people who are thinking the same way.
So, Brian, you also cooperate with the Italian government, and it's a program that it's dedicated to help Italian startups grow into a global dimension. That's how you and I met about a year ago. Tell me a little bit more about it and about the new entrepreneurs that might be coming over this summer.
So firstly, a big shout out to the Italian government for doing what they did. Many countries try and fumble their way through actually aligning entrepreneurship with how they want to grow as a country. And the Italians did such a brave job. I really liked how they did it. They took all of these entrepreneurs, they sent them over to multiple different countries all around the world. And then they aligned them with accelerators in those countries. And it was folks like us worked with them in LA, Plug and Play worked with them in San Francisco. They also had another cohort to go to New York and other places as well. And you and I met through the LA ones. And it was the first time they had done that program. So many things that they'll continue to improve on and get better in the future. But just from my perspective, it was a phenomenal 3-month period because we brought these 8 or 9 companies in and we put them through a rigorous program of learning communication, scale, product fit, breaking into America. How do they build their base? How do they build their customers? How do they become stronger? And then we introduced them to, I think, probably about 100, 120 investors during that period as well. And the other end of it, those companies saw the world from an international perspective. So this was not an inexpensive thing for the Italian government to do, to take all of these hundreds of companies and send them all around the world, pay for their accommodation, pay to put them through programs, make sure that they were okay. But as the beginning of something that will become better and better and better and better in the future, they will reap rewards 10 times over. So I really hold them in the highest respect for what they've done. And they're the first European nation I've seen really take ownership of this. And we're looking forward to that collaboration for many years to come.
And do you expect entrepreneurs to come this summer, or COVID is creating a little bit of a havoc in the scheduling?
They can't do it again. Yeah,
They
I think they're gonna have to hold off. It's very, very, very tough for them. You know, they're in a position where these things are really, really hard. And so my guess is it would be next year, but then it will
Right.
start again.
Very well. Now, one last question before I let you go. Are there other initiatives that Expert Dojo is involved currently?
So for me, look, we're an early stage accelerator. This is the only thing that we deal with. I love this space. I love dealing with early stage companies. And we're going to keep doing the same thing. We've invested in 60 companies so far. We put 100,000 checks into each one of those companies. Our objective, and we're a very unique accelerator because we haven't raised money outside the accelerator. There's only myself and my partner. And from our perspective, we want to do another 140 companies in the same way that we have it. And it allows us to invest in companies that we really like. And that's mainly immigrant founders, our international founders, and then it's to create a bridge from the world to come in. And then the final thing I would say, which is so wonderful about that, is we bring in companies. In this current cohort, we have companies from Israel, we have companies from Argentina, we have companies from Canada, we have companies from America, we got companies from Ireland, we got companies from England, we got a company from South Korea. So we bring them all in, we put them in the dojo, we look like some kind of a quasi-United Nations, and we just want to keep on building that, and we want to be able to show Silicon Valley that by bringing in really strong immigrant and international founders, actually we can get a higher percentage return on startups. So it'll be very interesting to see where it goes.
Very well. Listen, Brian, it was a pleasure to have you on our new interview series. It's always interesting to talk to you, and I love to hear about this sort of global dimension about startups. It's so exciting, and it's certainly in the DNA of Meet Italy as well to sort of embrace this sort of a global aspect of investing. So thank you very much for being with us. And thank you all for tuning in with Meet Italy. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.